Well, now you know.
This is a poet who lit your darkest days?
Didn't I tell you he was a tortured soul?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Ali, and today we are continuing our deep dive into the Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. In my previous video, we managed to break down the first 7 songs of the album plus the in summation poem. But I quickly learned that I have a lot to say, therefore it required a part 2. If for some reason you haven't seen that video, I will link it below and strongly recommend watching that before we dive into the rest of the album here. It provides a lot of very necessary context and also a very fun giveaway. Thank you for everyone that entered that already, and thank you for all of the lovely comments. The things I say in these videos are obviously just my personal interpretations, and truly nothing makes me happier than getting to hear someone else's. Right, now let's get back into this album. So today we begin our discussion with Guilty as Sin. This song belongs in a category that I like to call Taylor Swift ovulation songs. Other hits include Dress, So It Goes, and boy, I bet the Reputation Vault is full of a few more of these. Nothing could have prepared me for this song, and I mean that in the best way. I think you can tell from my reaction video how surprised I was by this song and just how much I was loving it. I apologize if you can hear the birds that are going crazy outside right now. There's obviously nothing I can do to change that. Personally, I quite like it, but I don't know how it's going to sound acoustically in this video, so I apologize. So this entire song is kind of grappling with the morality of being in a somewhat loveless relationship, feeling quite unhappy, meanwhile fantasizing about someone else. I touched upon this in my previous video in part 1, but something I love so much about growing up with Taylor, as her songwriting and storytelling evolves, we get to dive into more nuanced topics. That often includes more murky or like ugly discussions where we are kind of opening up this door to examine our own behavior, our own thoughts, or even just, you know, if we view it as a character, but like a moral dilemma. On her early albums, we start with crushes, figuring yourself out, celebrating friendships and new beginnings, or even, you know, the complexities of a breakup or relationship. But on the Tortured Poets Department, we really see Taylor dive into themes that she hasn't really explored before, addressing the fans, but in a very different way to Long Live. You know, the way she addresses fans, opening up more about mental health struggles, alcoholism, and now the ethical dilemma of fantasizing about someone that you are not in a relationship with. Not only not in a relationship with, but are in a relationship with someone else at the time. Now, we have dipped our toes into this theme with songs like Illicit Affairs, or even the folklore teenage love triangle, which is kind of interesting to think about given what I said in the previous video about Cardigan, and we will talk more about that today. But this time, Taylor allows herself, and therefore the listener, to really delve into what that situation might be like. We begin with Drowning in the Blue Nile, He Sent Me Downtown Lights. Drowning in the Blue Nile. We open this song with a reference to Maddie Healy's favorite band, the Blue Nile.
I love the Blue Nile. There's an album called Hats by the Blue Nile. It's one of the best albums of all time. You can hear so much of the 1975 in that album. Yeah. So I'd say that album at the moment is a massive influence on us.
And the intro actually samples the hook of that song. Now, the 1975 also sampled this song on their track Love It If We Made It, essentially mimicking that same intro. I love this play on words here because obviously not only an actual song that Maddie likely did recommend to Taylor, but Drowning in the Blue Nile. Blue is the color that has so long, London, that has time and time again been associated with Joe.
Oh damn, never seen that color blue. Ocean blue eyes. My heart's been borrowed and yours has been blue. It's blue, the feeling I got in it. I'm with you, even if it makes me blue. I blew things out of proportion, now you blue. Give me the blues and then purple pink skies. If you cascade ocean wave blues, come no other shade of blue but you.
The fact that she was drowning in it, this mirrors the experience we heard her sing about on like Fresh Out the Slammer, So Long London, just how deeply she was struggling and drowning at that time. I hadn't heard it in a while is such a great addition to this line because she's letting us know this song isn't something I'm hearing for the first time, aka this person isn't someone that's new to me. I am rehearing it. It's someone coming back into my life. It's like she maybe was almost forgetting that this person existed and once reminded is really enjoying it. As a side note, I really enjoy when Taylor references other artists or figures changes in her music. We obviously have Tim McGraw, we get Stevie Nicks later on this album, we had James Taylor in Begin Again, Janet Jackson on Snow on the Beach, even a slight nod to Joni Mitchell's Blue on her album Red. The line, "My boredom's bone deep, this cage was once just fine." Personally, I don't know how I would ever recover from that being written about me. I've talked at length about how obviously we expected a lot more Joe on this album, and really there's only like one full song that is about him, but like that line, to me that is almost as bad as having "the smallest man who ever lived" written about you. My boredom is bone deep. I'm not just like bored in my brain, my skeleton is bored. It is like beyond my control. My entire existence is bored. Obviously Taylor, and probably both of them, were very unsatisfied in this relationship. I think she felt practically ignored. We got deep into that in part 1, but I think that kind of boring house arrest, so to speak, really did serve its purpose. And despite Taylor saying in the Time magazine interview, like, "Those years that I stayed locked up, I'll never get that time back," I do think what she needed at the time, being like the Reputation era and also lockdown, was just that like gentle companionship. Relationships do serve a purpose for a time. That time had its moment and it has since passed. And I think Taylor agrees with this. This cage was once just fine.
This cage was once just fine.
I think now that those times are over, she's really ready to be her full self again and loved at full capacity. Also, I'm so cold. It is like one of the coldest days Melbourne has ever had. It's like 1 degree outside. At least I'm still on theme. Okay. I dream of cracking locks, throwing my life to the wolves or the ocean rocks. Cracking locks because, as we have established previously, she's in jail, she's locked up, she's in the slammer, but also she felt caged. She is the orange Karma Taylor in the cage. Even Miley Cyrus in Can't Be Tamed, in that bird cage, longing to be free. Now, I think Taylor knew that she would not just be simply released from this prison, from this cage. She had to be the one to break herself out. It had to be the more erratic, destructive, chaotic decision, but she had no other choice. That instantly parallels "I broke my own heart because he was too polite to do it." If you are feeling the effects of Tolerate It, which I hope none of you ever do, the strength that it takes to walk away from, oh my god, again, what is it? You know, the slowest way that you can kill the one you love is never loving them enough. What is the line? Anyway, if you've ever felt like that, it is incredibly hard to detach yourself and decide that you deserve more. And that's kind of what Taylor's grappling with in this song, as well as the morality of that decision. We established in So Long London, she was ready to fight for them. She was going down with the ship, but you really need two to make that fight. And she was the only one fighting. So throwing my life to the wolves or the ocean rocks, Taylor knows what's at stake here. She knows what she is potentially A, giving up, but also B, subjecting herself to if she makes this choice, and how much the decision to be seen with this new person that is very different to the people she's been dating in the past or spent the past 6.5 years with, how much the world would have something to say about that. She knows it would change not only her personal but also her public life, and maybe not for the better. Personally, I think throwing my life to the wolves, that to me brings in themes of like the media, the paparazzi, but also us, the fans, and like general population. Similar to the way that we've seen the media portrayed in her other songs, like the hunters, vultures, jackals. Here it's vicious wolves. And then the ocean rocks, to me that almost represents the person. In the summation poem in part 1, we talked about how Maddie was viewed as a tidal wave, like unpredictable, potentially dangerous, but a lot more wild and exciting than being caged in the slammer. Ocean rocks, like a tidal wave, are unpredictable, potentially even lethal. And yet this felt like the better alternative than staying trapped. So Taylor is establishing that she knows the criticism she will face, the backlash, it's worth it to try and be with him. We see themes like this in Love Story or But Daddy I Love Him, or even Ours, kind of being like, I don't care about what any of you have to say. I'm willing to throw away everything to follow my heart. And the fact that she follows this with crashing into him tonight really does just make me feel like in this scenario, not only is the situation the ocean rocks, but also this partner. Like, he is the erratic, crazy, potentially dangerous, but also exciting thing that she's about to like dive into. It's him that she'll crash into if she has the bravery to make that leap. Now, I know I talked in part 1 a lot about the connections to the Midnights album, but we have some more here. So I Dream of Cracking Locks connects back to High Infidelity. Lock broken, slur spoken.
Lock broken, slur spoken.
Very interesting when we consider the subject of this song. And then once again, He Don't Understand Me. I'd pay if you just know me.
Good money, I'd pay if you just know me.
When we revisit these albums together, it is alarming how much overlap there is. And didn't Taylor mash up High Infidelity with Fresh Out the Slammer?
You know there's many different ways
Interesting, very interesting. We begin to climb in this song when she says, I'm seeing visions. She is being overcome by these thoughts of him. I think it really says that she was powerless to this pull that he had. Like daydreaming, I think is more voluntary, but visions, we know from Raven Baxter, those are involuntary. We can't control when we get those visions. They just happen. I love the questioning then of, am I bad or mad or wise? She's literally running through this scenario, trying to justify it to herself. Am I bad? Am I a terrible person for even considering this right now? Does that make me wrong and immoral? This echoes a lot of the religious themes that we see across this album, wondering how she can reconcile her thoughts and her actions with her own mind of what she believes to be right or wrong. Then am I mad? Am I actually crazy for even thinking that this might happen? Like, am I actually out of my mind? Which from the prologue, we know that the answer is kind of yes. There was a little bit of temporary insanity that she pleaded to. And finally, am I wise? She's like, hang on, what if I'm actually smarter than everyone else here and I know that this is the right choice? You guys can't see it yet, but I know. That's what I'm gonna go with. Then we have the chorus. What if he's written mine on my upper thigh, only in my mind?
What if he's written mine on my upper thigh, only in my mind?
Now, notably, both Taylor and the 1975 have songs called Mine.
You are the best thing that's ever been mine.
But I'm just fine, 'cause I know that you're mine.
I don't think that's necessarily like an Easter egg, but I do think it's just like a fun little play on that. Now, importantly, this is not about something being written on her heart or on her soul. It is about her skin. She's letting us know this is a physical thing. This song is not about marriage or long-term love dreams. It is physical, okay? Taylor is being horny on main. Call me Sarah or Hannah because I was clutching my pearls. Again, we know that these two have a long-spanning history. Like I think it was 2014 initially when like Maddie publicly declared a song was dedicated to Taylor. He then recently said, I'm not kissing anyone in front of the Queen, meaning Taylor Swift. The key factor to remember is that little door in the mind that you can just sometimes store a person or a thought away in. And maybe you're laying awake at night, feeling a little bored, feeling a little unstimulated in the connection you have with someone who, by the way, let's not forget, was with someone else in dreams. That thought can really fuel the fire and keep you going, and in fact, fuel many songs, which shout out to Midnights. So to me, this song is like False God and I Can See You had a baby, and I love it. And also finally, the album cover, which side is it? This one makes a lot of sense. Remember when this album cover was launched and people were like, you know, her hand is in a very interesting place, looks like it's alluding to self-pleasure. Well, now you know. And interestingly, what if he's written mine on my upper thigh, only in my mind? Kind of calls back to Made Your Mark on Me, Golden Tattoo, or like, what is it? I want to wear his initial on a chain around my neck, not because he owns me, because he really knows me. I think in this case, it's like, there's something a little bit hot and sexy about feeling like you're someone's, not property, but like, I don't know.
Shut up, not her property.
When you really love someone, you almost like want them, you want to know that you mean as much to them as they do to you. So here Taylor is questioning, what if I've made this up? What if this is all just in my brain? I feel this way, but it's not reciprocated because as we know, nothing's happened yet. What if I'm making this into something that it just isn't? One slip and falling back into the hedge maze. Such a poetic line.
One slip and falling back into the hedge maze. What a way to die.
And Taylor, as we know, has used a hedge maze, aka a labyrinth, before to sing about love. I don't know if I talked about this in my Midnights breakdown, but I think it just speaks to the unpredictability of love and relationships and a person, and how like you could be journeying for so long thinking that you are going to reach the middle where this prize is that you've been searching for that whole time, or you could just be going in circles, staying lost and not getting anywhere. And the fact that it's one slip and falling, it's like, it would be so easy. You know when you have tension with someone, it's like, it would be so easy just to give into that sexual chemistry or tension or like energy. One kiss and I would blow my whole life up. Or one kiss and we could be madly in love. It would be so easy. Just one slip is all it would take. Every time I hear hedge maze, I do think of the Triwizard Tournament.
Back into the hedge maze. What a way to die.
We then continue this with Oh What a Way to Die. The way Taylor sings about this is so sensual. It really reminds me of the Smiths, but more importantly, I don't really listen to the Smiths. I know this from 500 Days of Summer, when Zooey Deschanel joins Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the elevator and they sing To Die By Your Side, What a Heavenly Way to Die.
To die by your side is such a heavenly way to die. I love them.
The way that Taylor sings Oh What a Way to Die is so sensual. To me, again, this is an innuendo. Like, it does not actually mean death as in the end of life. There is a French saying, and I'm going to butcher this, but le petit mort, which translated means the little death and is often a euphemism for an orgasm. So here in this song, when we hear references to death or like my grave, that is what I want you to keep in mind. Now, the key line I think in this song, and maybe even the thesis statement of this song, is I keep recalling things we never did. Reminding us that this entire song takes place inside a fantasy. How I long for our trysts because they haven't happened yet. That's why it's so sexy and like alluring, because there is nothing hotter than someone that's a little bit off limits and you haven't been able to explore that yet. Once you have, like, it loses a little bit of its sparkle, right? They haven't taken it to that level yet. So at this point, it's still just daydreaming. Without ever touching his skin, how could I be guilty of sin? This to me calls back to, what song was it? So Long London? How much sad did you think I had in me? She's like actually asking, if you were in my position, what would you do? Verse 2 gives us one of the most insightful lyrics potentially of the whole album. I keep these longings locked in lowercase inside a vault.
I keep these longings locked in lowercase inside a vault.
For anyone new, vault songs are the songs that Taylor wrote for an album that just did not make the cut. And in some of these instances, thanks to Scooter Braun, Scott Borchetta, that whole thing, we are lucky enough to hear some of those vault songs. We will not hear vault songs for albums like Lover, Folklore, Evermore. Midnights, we kind of got a vault song because we got You're Losing Me. That said, the albums that are lowercase, Folklore, and Evermore. And I know people often tout these to be completely fictional albums, but let's not forget the original quote. Taylor said, I found myself not only writing about my own stories, but also writing about or from the perspective of people I've never met, people I've known, or those I wish I hadn't. We know songs like The Last Great American Dynasty, The One, My Tears Ricochet, Mirrorball are very autobiographical. There are songs that since the album's released, we've kind of uncovered, we've kind of peeled back a few more layers and realized there's more truth than we previously knew. I've been talking for a long time about Cardigan in particular, and how, you know, especially when we take into account the words exchanged on stage by both parties in this relationship. There are just so many similarities there. But in addition to Cardigan, The One was an incredible revelation for me after hearing this album. Obviously, the Folklore set initially opened with Invisible String, which was a love song dedicated to how Taylor and Joe's lives had always been kind of, you know, leading towards one another. After the breakup, that was immediately cut and Taylor tried to play it off as like, oh, we're just gonna change things up on you guys. And what did she replace that song with? The One. A song about reflecting on your time with someone that you didn't end up with, but perhaps wish you had. You know, the greatest films of all time were never made. I keep recalling things we never did. Your Honor, I rest my case. In addition to the I keep my longings locked in lowercase, on this album we have two songs that are deliberately and stylistically in lowercase. That is LOML and I'm Gonna Get You Back, but we'll get to those. Now, obviously, Reputation is also in lowercase. I personally don't think this is as much referring to that. I do think during the Reputation era, Taylor had enough inspiration and didn't need anyone else to be swirled into her poem, so to speak. To me, it's really Folklore and Evermore that we are looking at. Cowboy Like Me, The One, Cardigan, there's a lot there. But also The Vault, you know, the songs that we haven't heard and may never hear. One of the most interesting lines to me on this song is, someone told me there's no such thing as bad thoughts, only your actions talk.
No such thing as bad thoughts, only your actions talk.
This is another layer of Taylor questioning it and judging what she's doing. The added layer is she's saying, well, someone else said I can't be held responsible for just my thoughts. Like, as long as I don't act on this, it's fine. You know, I can go off the judgment of others and they're saying it's okay, so don't hold me responsible. Now, I find this concept so interesting. Obviously, in my reaction video, I used the Book of Mormon quote reference. That was kind of all I had heard about this concept, but I learned from you guys in the comments that that lyric doesn't reflect Christian values. If I'm not mistaken, under that Christian faith, even the thoughts themselves are considered sinful and sins. And now I just personally find that so interesting to explore because, I mean, as someone that studied psychology and finds philosophy really interesting, I think our minds have to be a safe space, a safe place where we can explore and dive deep into just any topic we want to. And like, especially if someone is coming out of a religion where you're kind of given a literal guidebook for what is right and what is wrong, when for a lot of people the world is filled with nuance, right? And like gray area, and you have to be able to figure out for yourself what is right and what is wrong. Personally, I just think freedom of thought, not even freedom of speech or expression, but freedom of thought is so important. Critical thinking, that exploration free from judgment, all so important to our own development and growth. But also when you think about OCD or intrusive thoughts, people can't always choose their thoughts. So to say that it's a sin to even have it enter your mind opens a big can of worms in my perspective. But it is just such an interesting concept to think about. So I'd really love to hear from you guys on that one. What are your thoughts around that? Okay, then we progress. These fatal fantasies giving way to labored breath.
Fatal fantasies giving way to labored breath.
She really can't lay it out any clearer here. These fantasies are killing her, but in the best way. Again, this ties right back into the little death, those labored breaths, you know, building up that it will eventually reach a climax. Now, We've Already Done It in My Head reminds me so much of a line from Why Can't I by Liz Phair.
Here we go, we're at the beginning. We haven't got yet, but my head's spinning.
YouTube, I apologize for that language. It just felt important to mention here. And then, why does this feel like a vow we'll both uphold somehow? Obviously, this just suggests she really saw them going the distance together. Making these vows and committing to one another is likely the reason that she felt able to break herself free out of the slammer, out of the cage, because she's like, well, I've got this other thing that's gonna serve me for the rest of my life. I'm set with that. That's what probably gave her the strength to get out of the oven and into the microwave, because she felt like what they had was the real deal. Interestingly, I don't think she's saying like, I think we'll make a vow. It comes across more as like, this feels like an unspoken vow we both already have and know about. Like, you know when people have those, like if we're both single by 40, like let's get married. It kind of feels like that. They had this burning connection when they were 25, cue Peter, that one day they might reconnect and find one another. So I think in her mind, she was like, I feel like this is something that we will be true to our word. We will both uphold that connection that we know we have. I'm going for it. Okay, then we get into what I'm gonna say is maybe the most interesting bridge of the whole album, although that is saying a lot, but I could almost do an entire video, like updating the would've, could've, should've video with all of the new religious motifs we have from this album, and in particular, this song. It just interests me so much, Taylor's kind of poetry and lyrical exploration of a deconstruction of faith. Now, this bridge in particular stands out from all of the other previous examples we've seen and talked about, because in previous songs, especially if we look at her early albums, Taylor really sings about God in the kind of classical Christian upbringing way that you would, especially in country music.
And thanking God that you weren't here. For I said amen, asking God if he God smiles on my little brother, and we'll sing hallelujah. Talk to the sky, talk to the man with the reasons why.
Later, we have instances of her questioning that relationship.
Desperate people find faith, so now I pray to Jesus too. You're a crisis of my faith, and redemption never would have danced with the devil. The tomb won't close. Did some force take you because I didn't pray?
But here, in this song, she herself is playing the role of Jesus.
What if I roll the stone away? They're gonna crucify me anyway.
Quick little Bible study from someone that left the church but was bored on summer holidays and attended a youth group program. So some of it's still in there. Jesus sacrificed his life and he suffered for others. His body was then kept in a tomb, and the stone covering like the door, the hole, the doorway, was then rolled away a few days later, and it was revealed that he had resurrected. Now, we already know that Taylor was in a tomb from the Great War.
Spineless in my tomb of silence.
So now Taylor here is rolling that stone away herself and resurrecting not only herself, but their connection. You know, Jesus died for his beliefs, and she's saying, me too. They're gonna crucify me anyway. She's like, again, I know that no matter what happens, the public will have an opinion about it. She might as well do what makes her happy. And let's also remember, this is not the first time we've seen Taylor allude to her being crucified. What if the way you hold me is actually what's holy? She's like, I've been trying to do the right thing this whole time, be a good girl, you know, have my faith, good girl faith, tight little skirt. But what if I've been going about that wrong? What if what's actually the right thing is like when you and I are together? That's actually what feels right to me. Such a callback to false God. I know heaven's a thing. I go there when you touch me. If long-suffering propriety is what they want for me, she's looking out at the crowd, the fans, the general public, and realizing, All they want is grey for me. People want her to do the socially acceptable thing. They want her to live the life that they had gotten used to for her or expected for her. Stay with the safe, indie darling, introverted boyfriend who was kind of an unknown private introvert, rather than what in her eyes was probably fucking up that entire plan and like running away with the dirty musician who seems like everything her PR team would advise against. And ironically, we can't even debate against that because we saw what happened when she did choose this. The entire world did crucify her for it anyway. They don't know how you've haunted me so stunningly. In our discussion of But Daddy I Love Him, we talked about how that song, but also the relationship she's singing about, really parallels ours and that relationship. Ours was written in defense of her relationship with John Mayer, a way of telling him, I don't care, I hear what everyone's saying, but I'm blocking it out, I'm with you. And she's somewhat saying that again here. But more than that, hearing her mention haunted took me back to that Speak Now song. Someone that maybe is in your past or are trying to move on from is just haunting you. And more than that, I'm gonna bring this once again back to Cardigan. I knew you'd haunt all of my what ifs. You've haunted me so stunningly. Then we have I Choose You and Me religiously.
I choose you and me religiously.
Which again kind of parallels I chose this cyclone with you. Like, I know this is going to be a shitstorm, but it is what I want. I choose you and me religiously. Now here, the song seemingly ends. We have like a false finish.
Religiously.
Fades out before coming back in stronger than it was before.
What if he's written mine on my upper thigh on the inside?
And I wonder if this parallels their relationship. Like a false stop that then gets picked up right where it ended. I just simply cannot believe Taylor has written the most poetic, beautiful song about like self-pleasure that we've probably ever heard. It is such an incredible banger. I might not ever get over it. Now again, the concept and idea of singing about someone that has kept you creatively and sexually stimulated calls me back to another song.
All those nights he kept me going.
We can address that line in a way that doesn't even mean songwriting. Like that could be completely separate to swirled you into all of my poems. All those nights you kept me going was just like, I was thinking about you. These memories, or rather thoughts of Maddie, are what kept her going. Now gosh, I don't remember what video I said this in. Maybe my Tortured Poets Department predictions video, but I mentioned the Taylor that we see on the Eras Tour visuals. Firstly, in Wildest Dreams, her bed sheets are ablaze.
My bedsheets are ablaze. I screamed his name.
My bed sheets were ablaze. I screamed his name. All right. Good for you, girl. Is this not, again, the Eras Tour visuals where she's like on a bed that's ablaze? That's this Taylor. Like, that is Taylor singing Guilty as Sin. But additionally, we have the sexy, dressed in black Taylor lighting the match that burns down the lover house. And I said, I think that is going to be the Taylor that we then later will meet on the Tortured Poets Department. Now, I think I kind of hit the nail on the head with that one. Even if it's not like what she believes, I'm choosing to believe that that really fits in with this album, because that Taylor whose bed sheets were ablaze is the one that was like, I'm ready to let go of the lover house and like everything that represents, burn my life down as I know it, and start again. Now, Taylor does one of my favorite things that Taylor does on this song, which is to repeat a lyric that we have heard at the beginning or at the top of the song, which is, am I allowed to cry? To me, the reason this is included is I'm sorry for making all these parallels to her other songs if it feels unnecessary. That is just how my brain works. I'm so sorry, but am I allowed to cry? Because Taylor once said to us, I vowed not to cry anymore if we survived the Great War. And they didn't. So now she's asking, am I allowed to cry? We'd love to hear what you guys think is the thesis statement of that song, because there are some good, strong contenders. Next up we have Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? This is one of my favorite things in the world, and that is a Taylor Swift self-write. I remember when the album came out, I saw a tweet that was like, Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is not written with a glittery gel pen or a fountain pen or a quill. This is written with the tip of a cursed dagger using the blood of her mortal enemies as ink. And that really just sums it all up, I think. This song is kind of a continuation of songs like Blank Space and Antihero, where Taylor playfully addresses her relationship with the media and even her fans. I would really love to know what event in Taylor's life inspired this song, because this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think this song is about one thing in particular, you know, one person or one event or even like one day or anything like that. I think this song is a real amalgamation of kind of everything that has happened over her career. Years of experience in the industry, being mistreated, seeing others be mistreated, the whole shebang. But I just love to wonder, like, what was the one instance that made her think, I need to write this song? The way that she plays with her imagery in this song, but also is quite honest and vulnerable, makes me think of, like, you know when a dog is abandoned and mistreated and abused on the streets, and like finally someone goes to take it in, but of course after all of those years of being so mistreated and violently hurt, it grows to not trust humans, because why would it when it's been so mistreated? That's kind of who I see singing this song. So we open with the who's who of Who's That.
The who's who of Who's That.
Very similar to Paris, is like your ex-friend's sister, a social crowd, anybody who's anybody. And I feel like by the end of this song, she's essentially saying, you created a monster. That's who you want me to be? Sure. Which again kind of calls back to her Time magazine article when she was like, are you not entertained? I think at the end of the day, at her core, her strongest talent is a songwriter. That is who she is. But her job is to be an entertainer. And to me, songs like this, and I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, really exemplify that. My bare hands paved their paths.
My bare hands paved their path.
Can be taken a lot of different ways. My brain instantly took this to Big Machine Records. Taylor was like the youngest person basically ever signed at the time and was their only client. She built their record label to be what it became and, you know, made Scott Borchetta a millionaire, if not more. And like, yes, they took a chance on her as an incredibly young, incredibly green artist that people didn't really know that well yet, but that investment paid off 1 million fold. And I think I thought of that because My Bare Hands, it was like she was self-writing her songs, which is very uncommon, not only at that age of like the age of 13, 14, but also kind of across the industry. It's a lot more rare than you think that people are writing all of their own songs. There is not a single song in Taylor Swift's catalog that she did not write. Even Untouchable, which is a cover, the original band acknowledged that she changed it so much she deserves writing credit. So additionally, paved their paths, so that could refer to like the success that she gave Scott and their whole label, but also the way that she's kind of paved the way for new artists, especially young women and especially songwriters. This is something we get a nod to in Nothing New.
She'll know the way and then she'll say she got the laugh from me.
Definitely keen to hear what you guys think about that line. I also love the way she says, if you wanted me dead, you should have just said, and goes up on the just. It's just such a little like cheeky, oh, like why didn't you say so?
If you wanted me dead, you should have just said.
So I leap from the gallows and I levitate down your street.
So I leap from the gallows and I levitate down your street.
A wise woman once said, they're burning all the witches even if you aren't one. And again, we touch on this in Cassandra.
When it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking.
So the gallows, if you don't know, is where a public execution is held. Taylor has been continually put in this position and defied it time and time again. Public opinion of Taylor Swift is almost cyclical at this point, and I can't imagine how frustrating that must be to experience it. But I just love that she's playing with the idea of like, well, a lot of the Christian community, including a man that made a video about me, or used my content at least, claim that she is a witch. So once again, like Blank Space, she's taking the public narrative of her and being like, sure, let's roll with that. Watch me free myself from the gallows and literally fly down your street, like a terrifying image, and then crash the party like a record scratch. I just love this because it brings to mind something stopping so abruptly, interrupting all of the happy vibe suddenly and without warning. A record scratch instantly kills the vibe. And the use of record makes me wonder if she's in fact referring to her masters being bought out from underneath her. While I do think this song is, I'm not going to say fictional, I think it's a dramatic play on the life she's experiencing. And while there are similarities to Blank Space in the kind of fantastical representation of herself as this like larger than life being, I do think it's also really, really quite sad. It's a very vulnerable reflection on how she just doesn't feel human and also isn't seen as human.
You know, I struggle a lot with the idea that, you know, my life has become unmanageably sized, and that I, you know, not to sound too dark, but like I just struggle with the idea of like not feeling like a person.
My life is like a fishbowl, and that like if I were to like fall in love, you know, somebody's choosing to be in that fishbowl with me.
I was tame, I was gentle, till the circus life made me mean. Don't you worry, folks, we took out all her teeth. Circus as a metaphor for this industry is not a new concept at all. See Circus by Britney Spears, Mirrorball. It's a performance, but a more absurdist, possibly more sinister behind the scenes, often with acts being forced to push the limits of what they should safely be doing. The industry reassuring, don't you worry, folks, circus conductor showman language, you know, reassuring the crowd of innocent, naive showcomers. Don't worry, like, she's snarling in her cage, but we'll sedate her enough to perform for you. Taking out all her teeth is like they have subdued the artist in order to continue profiting off her, but to stop her from fighting back or speaking up or experiencing a real human response to this situation. This is a way to keep her in captivity. She can only continue to perform if she isn't a real danger to those profiting off her. Is it a wonder I broke? Let's hear one more joke.
Little wonder I broke. Let's hear one more joke.
In other words, the jokes weren't funny.
You know what, Taylor Swift? You stay away from Michael J. Fox's son.
What do you care? You go through men faster than Taylor Swift.
Thing that everyone in their darkest moments loves to do, which is to slut shame.
She stayed silent and took the money just to try and hold on to what she had created for herself. You know, her friends from home don't know what to say if we look back at You're on Your Own kid. I think the people that know Taylor and like not capital T, capital S, Taylor Swift, don't have words for what she's experiencing because no one else can relate to that. Taylor Swift, I don't think, has peers anymore. There is no one that is on her level of fame, and that has to be one of the most isolating experiences I can think of. And that's what she's alluding to in You Wouldn't Last an Hour in the Asylum Where They Raised Me.
You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me.
I was bewildered, that's a nice way of putting it, to see how many people interpreted this line literally, that were like, but she grew up in a really nice house in Pennsylvania, not an asylum. And I have to wonder if people are just trolling when they say stuff like that. But anyway, again, I've talked so many times on my channel about like the pitfalls of fame, but especially reaching that at a young age and the irreversible damage that that does to one's psyche. I like that. I think this really challenges everyone listening to put themselves in her shoes. And again, I know a lot of people like to say that if you're famous and rich, you wouldn't have any problems. I think it's quite the opposite. But she's just saying, like, judge me all you want, but if you had to experience even a moment of this life that I'm subjected to, you'd be the exact same way. And it's not even fame. It is a complete loss of privacy. Like, not even physically in your day-to-day life, but like, you don't own yourself anymore. You and I don't have to deal with being depicted naked by AI or having a beloved billionaire that millions and billions of people look up to, creating a physical version of your naked body and face and image, laying next to him in bed, being stripped of all dignity and all privacy, and that still exists on the internet. Like, I will simply never understand how Kanye has any fans to this day, but also like, that wasn't made into a big enough deal, in my opinion. Imagine teenage Taylor who wrote Innocent and said, who you are is not what you did, you're still an innocent, forgiving him. Imagine her knowing what he went on to do. The level of freedom that you lose once you become famous, that I don't think you ever get that back. And personally, I completely agree with everything on this song. Like we hear in Dear Reader, the greatest of luxuries is your secrets. That is a privilege that you and I have that most famous people don't really get to hold on to anymore.
Literally in the 2 days since I filmed this, both Vanessa Hudgens and Margot Robbie's pregnancies were like leaked without their consent, without them announcing it. And I know to some people this might seem like a really insignificant thing. Hopefully it doesn't, but it is just something I would not wish upon my worst enemy. And I know because we've heard Taylor speak about like just how difficult it would be for her to bring children into this world. She's talked about how even having a partner feels, you know, like, I mean, listen to Peace. She tried to break up with Joe because she's like, this is too much to bring you into. This is not fair. I shouldn't subject anyone else to this. That just goes to show how awful her experience is, or I guess I'll say can be, that she does not want to subject the people that she loves to her life. Anyway, this song says it better than I can.
The fact that we are able to connect with new people from a fresh perspective where they don't know everything about us, again, is a privilege. Heck, this is literally why Miley Stewart created Hannah Montana, to experience the best of both worlds, because being famous kind of sucks. Like, she wants to enjoy the creativity of it, the songwriting, the work, but not the way that it ruins your life. You know, allow her to reach success, but also enjoy the privilege of a regular, boring, mundane life. I know a lot of people struggle to find empathy for rich, famous celebrities, and I understand that, but I just think if we look at, for example, the amount of celebrities that died young and in tragic ways or in self-imposed ways, or even that have had public mental breakdowns.
A lot of girls your age that have become as famous as you have also become train wrecks. We're seeing racy photographs, arrests, getting into drugs, drinking, all that kind of stuff. That hasn't happened with Taylor Swift. Why?
I've never been drunk. I've never, done anything like that because I've never had any interest in it.
it would be ignorant for us to ignore this problem that exists. And I know I don't need to explain this to you guys, but I do just find it very interesting, the lack of empathy for anyone that earns a certain amount of money, but even more than that, someone that is famous, because I think we just know fame is not good for the human brain. It is not how we're meant to live. Yeah, I do just have empathy for, well, everyone, I guess is the moral of the story. Now in the bridge here, I love that Taylor does a kind of blank space-esque moment again, you know, depicting herself the way the world sees her. I'll sue you if you step on my lawn.
That I'll sue you if you step on my lawn.
Pretty clear here. Commentary on the discussions around how everyone thinks she will sue you if there is any slight resemblance to her song in another artist's song. You know, her lawn being a metaphor for her property, aka her discography. Rumors very publicly circulated around Taylor allegedly suing Olivia Rodrigo for similarities in Deja Vu and Cruel Summer. And as far as I know, that was debunked, and it was simply just, I think, like, Olivia gave her writing credits. Often writing credits are just established, and this is something that I really hope that Taylor will do on debut Taylor's version with I'd Lie. If you saw my debut Taylor's version deep dive prediction video, whatever, I go into that, but I really hope Saving Jane and Evan and Jaron will do this for Taylor. But I just think it creates such an interesting depiction of Taylor around the way she's viewed by the world and how that's changed over time. You know, initially a young ingenue coming up from the country scene up against all these grown men, a real underdog story, fighting to make a name for herself, compared to now having reached unimaginable success and new heights, is just painted as a completely unrelatable villain. Put narcotics into all of my songs is so funny because, again, this touches back on the people that literally accuse her of witchcraft, but also it just discredits all of her talent and moreover hard work.
You know, when I was like 23 and people were just like deciding that my songwriting was like a trick rather than a skill and a craft. It's a way to take a woman who's doing her job and succeeding at doing her job and making things. It's in a way, it's figuring out how to completely minimize that skill.
Like, her songs aren't good because they have drugs in them, like we like to joke. Her songs are good because she works hard at it and she's good at what she does. I really would love to insert the video that man made using my content. I feel like it's not plagiarism because he did it first.
Can a Christian be a Taylor Swift fan? I say no. Last week, billionaire megastar Taylor Swift returned from Australia. What did she sing to her adoring fans? Her lyrics were peppered with four-letter words and blasphemy references to God, which I can't and won't repeat here.
Now, the song ends with a reminder of how deeply this whole experience has hurt and impacted her. Because you lured me, and you hurt me, and you taught me, you caged me, and then you called me crazy. I am what I am because you trained me. She's saying, whatever I am at the end of the day, you made me this way. If she's a monster, she's Frankenstein's monster, and we're all Frankenstein. And Frankenstein has no place to judge the thing that he, aka the media, the music industry, and us the fans, created. I think the thesis statement of this song could be, I was tame, I was gentle, till the circus life made me mean. It shows the evolution of like how she was viewed. I was this demure, good girl that the industry really respected and loved, to who everyone views now as a villain. Okay, next up we have I Can Fix Him. No, really, I can. We were so blessed to get another sexy cowboy saloon song on this album. And like, look, we have all had a crush on someone that we know is bad for us. You guys have seen my ranking my fictional crushes video. I don't need to explain myself here. I'm not proud of this one, but young Tom Riddle. But mama, I'm in love with a criminal. That's Voldemort. Why did you have to make him so hot? Honestly, call me Ginny Weasley because I would let this man take my soul and overpower me. And because of that, I feel like this song is probably more relatable than a lot of the other tracks on this album. Everyone has had their Joe, and everyone, sadly, might have their Maddie. The smoke cloud billows out his mouth like a freight train through a small town. If we were gonna have any doubt over who this song was about, it is immediately squashed in the first line of this song. It's a man who smokes, and if I'm not mistaken, even like smokes on stage during his performances. But also these lyrics just paint such a picture of, all I can say is, a cowboy. The jokes that he told across the bar were revolting and far too loud.
Jokes that he told across the bar were revolting and far too loud.
This is the first time that in her career Taylor has really been associated with someone who was kind of a scandal. Obviously her relationships have attracted scandal, but never so much the man himself. So the result of this was Taylor and her good name being dragged through the mud just for being associated with someone that the public didn't like. They shake their heads saying, God help her, when I tell him he's my man.
They shake their heads saying, God help her, when I tell him he's my man.
That pretty much directly calls back to Sarah's and Hannah's in their Sunday best, clutching their pearls, sighing, what a mess. People not only are judging her, but they are like looking down on her. They're saying, I can't, so God help her. And then once again, we continue with these religious themes, but your good Lord doesn't need to lift a finger. I find this so interesting because Taylor does not say, the good Lord doesn't need to lift a finger. Our good Lord, it is your good Lord. She's distancing herself from Catholicism, Christianity, people that believe in God. You don't have to pray for me. I'm fine. She's now rejecting any attachment to God at all whatsoever. And I would love to hear from you guys. Do you take this as evidence of a full deconstruction of faith? Like she's creating this distinction and this gap between herself and these people that have faith in a good Lord. I can't really read it any other way. Once again, we'll say it 100 times. I love the way she weaves religious imagery throughout this album. It is so well done. Now, verse 2 on this song, once again, is essentially Cowboy Like Me 2.0. The dopamine races through his brain on a 6-lane Texas highway.
Dopamine races through his brain on a 6-lane Texas highway.
Sometimes I feel incredibly sheltered because I had to, in researching for this, I had to look up, do drugs give you dopamine? And the answer is of course yes. And I thought the answer would be yes, but obviously we all have dopamine. It is a naturally occurring thing. But the fact that she says races through his brain really to me made it sound like it was an immediate effect, which is maybe intentional and artificially driven. And I also think 6-lane highway is a play on like a 6-string guitar. So to me, these lines paint a picture. It is a musician who uses drugs. This then continues with his hand so calloused from his pistol softly traces hearts on my face.
Hand so calloused from his pistol softly traces hearts on my face.
Guys, I cannot handle how much this parallels the relationship that we see on Speak Now. On Ours, she literally says, your hands are tough, but they are where mine belong. In both of these songs, she is comparing and contrasting herself to this man who is like a little bit more rugged or dangerous or edgy. In that same breath, she also sees herself in this person. Because we know from a young age, Taylor had like calluses on her hands and was bleeding from how much she would play guitar.
Christmas came around and I got that 12-string guitar and I would play it every single day until my fingers bled.
This man, this cowboy, they share the same weapon, their music. Now, this bridge is maybe one of the sexiest things I've ever heard.
Good boy, that's right, angel, all night.
Oh my god, that sonically, that part there sounds like something's like going around and around and coming back again. Watch us go round and round each time, just like their relationship did. The realization.
Oh, maybe I can't.
This whole song is just Taylor trying to convince herself that this man is a little rough around the edges, but she personally can save him. And like, I love the confession of, I can fix him and only I can. Like, she's like, only I'm up for this job. No one else can do it. He will change for me. This is not a new concept. The idea of like a bad boy who is good only for you. I know a few people who can relate to that. Elena Gilbert, Caroline Forbes, Haley James, Rory Gilmore, Blair Waldorf. This is obviously a heavy trope in media to have someone that is, I guess, bad is the only way we can say it, but like reforms just for you. And I will say, I have never found that appealing. I mean, I am a Nathan girl over a Lucas girl, but like the idea to me that someone will do the right thing only because they think it's what I would want disgusts me. I don't know, but maybe there is something enticing around the idea that someone who is so set in their ways of being like this, you know, bad influence or whatever, that you are so powerful that only you have the power to reform them. I bet a lot of you will relate heavily to this song, and I say that with zero judgment, but I just absolutely love that at the end of this song, Taylor comes to the startling realization that maybe I can't fix him. And it's not even said as like a, oh, okay, like, I think I was wrong. The way she says, whoa.
Whoa, maybe I can't.
It's like she's realized it at the end, when it is simply too late. And also the way that she says whoa almost sounds like when you were like trying to settle a wild horse and she realized she is completely powerless here. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I love that addition at the end of, well, maybe I can't. I've seen a lot of people say they hate that and they wish it wasn't included. I don't know, I think it's a very key part of this album where she has that realization. And I do wonder at what point in the relationship did that realization occur? Was it after she was ghosted, or was it while they were still together and she realized, I can't change this person, but I love them anyway? anyway. Now, I really can't decide what the thesis statement is for this song besides the title, because the title really says it all. So let me know what you guys think. I think I have to go with "Your good Lord doesn't need to lift a finger," because that just says so much, not only about her relationship with this person, but her relationship with faith. Welcome back, guys. Let's get into these last 5 songs. Up first, we have LOML. So LOML, loml, is what I would call an honorary track 5, and I'm not saying it deserves that spot more than So Long London. In fact, I argued in my unpopular opinions video quite the opposite, but this is just a song that obviously hits different, hits harder than a lot of other songs, to the point where to get very vulnerable and real with you all, because I feel like only real ones are like watching these long ass videos anyway. This is a very hard song for me to talk about, and I had to force myself to listen to this song to write about it and to like speak about it here with you today. I'll elaborate potentially at another time, but yeah. This song is heavy to me in the same way that Soon You'll Get Better is. So there's a little spoiler for my ranking, but I promise I will try my best today. Now, in saying this song being an honorary track 5, I feel like almost every song on this album, especially the lower half, could almost be a track 5. There is just so much vulnerability and obviously heartbreak in this album. It's an album of track 5s. Was anyone else terrified by how much this song sonically resembled White Horse?
Just kids, babe, holding on, the days drag on.
Obviously, the Tortured Poets Department album is filled with references and callbacks, but this one in particular hurt because it felt like such a great parallel to make. Like, I'm not a princess, this ain't a fairy tale.
Too late for you and your white horse, sit on the love of your life.
That painful realization that someone just cannot be part of your life anymore, but this time in like a much more adult way. LOML is a song about a love that was always just slightly out of reach, and when you finally were able to grasp it, it fell through your fingers. This relationship finally, after years and years of longing and being in the back of each other's mind, it finally came into fruition and then blew up in her face. A lot of the general public, upon hearing this album, were in heavy denial, and still to this day are like, she did not write an album or any songs about someone she only dated for X amount of time. Again, I think people that say that just don't know Taylor Swift, who literally wrote Enchanted about someone she met once for one night, never even kissed. But I think the key thing that all of those people are forgetting is this was not just a short relationship. This was truly those 10 years of having a friendship, a connection with them, and always wondering, what if he and I were actually destined to be together? Wouldn't it have been fun if he had been the one? She knew he'd haunt all of her what ifs. And unfortunately, in this song, Taylor finally gets her closure. So with the play on LOML typically meaning love of my life, and then, you know, the twist that we all kind of saw coming, I do wonder if this was something that they would say or text to one another. Like, I would not be surprised. That's a very Taylor thing to do, to take something from their, you know, relationship, like a little postcard stamp, and insert it into this song.
I realized I didn't really elaborate on that point. So I guess I'm thinking of things like including Marjorie's voice in Marjorie or the typewriter sound in Fortnite, but I know there are so many more examples of this. So if you guys can think of any, please comment them below.
We open the song with "Who's Gonna Stop Us From Waltzing Back Into Rekindled Flames." I love the choice of the word waltz here rather than just walking back into rekindled flame. And I wonder if any of you can tell me, I need like a Charlie Puth in my audience, sonically, does this start of the song resemble a waltz? This entire first verse, Taylor is just talking about how easy it would be to go back to someone that you already knew. Like, that path is already laid out. It's just muscle memory. Not just falling into the hedge maze, but back into it. Someone that you've already known. We embroidered the memories of the time I was away, stitching We Were Just Kids, Babe. It's kind of poetic, as sad as it is to be like, kind of giving all of the girls you loved before, but on the flip side, like this time that I was away, off with my other person, locked away for 6.5 years, the time that we were apart made us the people that we are today to reconnect, and like finding the romanticism, positives in that, and like making a part of your story. We Were Just Kids, Babe. Obviously, Taylor was like in her early 20s when she moved to New York, met this person. And like, I don't mind, it takes time. It took us to now to like finally get it right, but I don't care. To feel like, you know, this is the end to all my endings, my broken bones are mending. Once again, everything was leading us to here. She feels like that was an invisible string. Finally, the timing is right, in the nick of time, in fact, when sadly, that wasn't the case. If you know it in one glance, it's legendary. You and I go from one kiss to getting married. Obviously, this album has many callbacks to many different songs. Going over that line made me think about how when we first heard the Tortured Poets Department, a lot of us thought it sounded like Suburban Legends.
You had people who called you on unmarked part number. Straight from the tortured poets department.
Now that she's brought up Legendary here, it made me re-listen to that song and like listen to the lyrics, and I think there's a lot of crossover here. Two music icons that were household names, aka suburban legends, in 2014. Makes sense. Think about those lyrics. You were so magnetic, it was almost obnoxious, flush with the currency of cool. I was always turning out my empty pockets when it came to you. Like, she was looking at a man that was rich with swagger, and she felt swagger impoverished in comparison. She could not compete when it came to this cool indie guy. She's like a pop star who's come from country, which is viewed as like even less cool in some circles. Like, remember the fangirl level that Taylor freaked out when Maddie wore her shirt and like talked about her on stage? Even I had this fantasy that maybe our mismatched star signs would surprise the whole school. We know that Taylor has referred to like the world as school. Honey, life is just a classroom. School could be the industry, Hollywood, the internet, Twitter. They would have been a pair that absolutely no one would have expected, especially back then. Little Miss Good Girl Faith in a tight little skirt, like Christian upbringing, come from country music, and Maddie Healy. It's like, what do they say? I was gonna say oil and water? Is that the saying? Chalk and cheese? Why is that a saying? Anyway, my point is that song, Suburban Legends, ends with, and I always knew it, my life would be ruined. Could be very interesting foreshadowing there. And then especially when we come to Still Alive, Killing Time at the Cemetery, I don't take this at all as a literal cemetery, although like the 2012 Tumblr imagery of that, definitely I could imagine. I take this as her digging up the grave another time. Once again, she can never leave well enough alone of this relationship that might have been, you know, the what if. The end of the chorus is staggering. You said I'm the love of your life about 1,000,000 times.
You said I'm the love of your life about 1,000,000 times.
She's telling the audience, but also reminding him, like, remember that you said this to me 1,000,000 times. I'm not making this up. I didn't conjure up this relationship out of nowhere in my head. You told me I'm the love of your life about 1,000,000 times. What was I supposed to believe? And of course that calls back to, but they lie and they lie and they lie 1,000,000 little times.
They lie 1,000,000 little times.
Especially interesting when you think about the fact that that's from Illicit Affairs, a song that I think very much parallels this relationship. Who's gonna tell me the truth when you blew in with the winds of fate?
Who's gonna tell me the truth when you blew in with the winds of fate?
The notion of someone blowing in with the winds of fate just gives me such cowboy vibes.
Told me I reformed you.
And that calls back to, I can fix him, no really I can. Like, you told me I reformed you. He was agreeing with her when she said, I can fix him, no really I can. He's like, yeah, you can. Like, you've reformed me. I will be that man for you. Until he wasn't. Most people would say, you lied to me about what our future would be. Taylor says, your impressionist paintings of heaven turned out to be fakes.
When your impressionist paintings of heaven turned out to be fakes.
She thought she had this beautiful, high value work of art between them, but it was a counterfeit. And then continuing that with, well, you took me to hell too. Hell was the journey, but it brought me heaven.
Hell was the journey, but it brought me heaven.
A con man sells a fool a get love quick scheme is one of my favorite lyrics on this whole album, and it does in fact call back to her poem from the Reputation era.
When she finally rose, she rose slowly, avoiding old haunts and sidestepping shiny pennies, wary of phone calls and promises, charmers, dandies, and get love quick schemes.
It is of course a play on a get rich quick scheme, aka like how to get money overnight. This is, you know, how to fall in love overnight, which is kind of what he sold her. In one fell swoop, she calls him a con man and herself a fool for falling for it. And she's kind of re-emphasizing what we hear on the prophecy. Like, I don't want money, just someone who wants my company. I just want love. And I fell for this. And once again, we are called back to Cowboy Like Me. Forever is the sweetest con.
A con man sells a fool a get love quick scheme. Forever is the sweetest con.
In true Taylor Swift fashion, we see a switch up from the first verse to the second. We had I felt a glow like this to now verse 2. I was gonna say season 2. I felt a hole like this, never before and never since. You know, it's highlighting the real highs and lows of high school football, of a whirlwind relationship like this. This is a conversation I have sometimes with one of my friends who has experienced a lot of very tumultuous relationships, and she believes the highs in the relationships she experienced, which were quite toxic, felt higher than the highs she felt in her stable, healthy relationship. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I'm just saying like it's a very interesting concept to think about how the people that have made us feel our complete lowest also can hold the power to make us feel so unbelievably happy, which is the real risk and danger danger of this, right? But yeah, she and I always talk about whether it's possible to have one without the other. Can you reach that same level of like dopamine, intense satisfaction in a perfectly healthy, happy relationship? I like to think so. I'm hoping someday love will prove her wrong. You cinephile in black and white. I think I've mentioned this in part 1 or maybe earlier in this video, but a lot, if not most, of the 1975's music videos are in black and white. I don't know enough about Maddie Healy or the band to make an assumption on that, but I wonder if it is an attempt to be seen more artistic and more deep. I don't know, like, this is the same guy that would carry a typewriter around, so who knows? Okay, the bridge. You shit talked me under the table, talking rings and talking cradles. This is just so deeply painful, and you can hear her pain when she sings this.
You shit talked me under the table, talking rings and talking cradles.
So this is a play on, you know, you talked me under the table, which is about someone's ability to be a great conversationalist. To talk you under the table is like, I thought I could talk well, but they're on another level. To say he shit talked her under the table means he's a complete bullshit artist and he pulled one over on her. Ultimately, he promised her things that he would never deliver on. It's quite devastating to hear Taylor sing about this because it's something that you would never really confess in a song unless you felt sure about it. Like, obviously we had Paper Rings, Taylor expressing like, I love you so much, I love shiny things, but I would marry you at the drop of the hat with no money. And then again on Give You My Wild, Give You a Child, like very, very open and vulnerable to say, this is what I want for us. I would love to have children with you. To now say, I was in a relationship and these are the things that I wanted and that I was told we would have, and then we didn't get to have them. I don't know, I just feel like as a woman to openly discuss that is incredibly vulnerable, and I really admire her talking about it on this song. Even on the 1975 song About You, which is rumored to be about Taylor, Maddie alludes to this. Someone sent me a Bob Marley quote that I think really just sums up a lot of this song, but especially that line. The biggest coward is a man who awakens a woman's love without the intention of loving her. I would say that is the smallest man who ever lived. I wish I could unrecall how we almost had it all. Again, just cuts like a knife. And it calls back to, like, I want someone to come and exercise you from my brain. I just don't want to even think about how close we were to this happily ever after. It just hurts too much. I would rather not remember it at all. Dancing phantoms on the terrace, are they secondhand embarrassed that I can't get out of bed?
Dancing phantoms on the terrace, are they second-hand embarrassed?
She's paralyzed by this pain and saying like, are the ghosts of our happier selves, of my happier self, are they looking at me now with pity? Because I would. Like, that's how she feels. She's like, I'm so embarrassed that I thought this would last. I thought this was it. And I thought this was real. Yet here I am, unable to get out of bed. Also, think about like when you're dating someone that you think or know is wrong for you, how hard that is to defend to your friends or like the entire world in her case. For them to prove your friends right, the whole time she was adamant, I can fix him. No, really, I can't. Like, don't worry. Only for it to fail. That's a different level of hurt. Something counterfeit is dead just calls back to glitch. It must be counterfeit. Okay, sorry. Just had to fix the light. All it took was me putting a blanket over my mirror. Only taken what, like 4 years to figure that out. So it was legendary, it was momentary, it was unnecessary. I should have let it stay buried. Again, it is that regret for never leaving well enough alone, for digging up the grave another time. It was unnecessary. I could have just let what we had or didn't have stay in the past and like not messed with this, but I just had to know. And I don't know about you guys, but I think sadly, as the kids say, this was a canon event. Like, sometimes you have to find things out the hard way, and I don't think she would have ever been satisfied had this always remained a what if. What a valiant roar, what a bland goodbye.
Oh, what a valiant roar, what a bland goodbye.
The way that things ended does not at all match the way that they started. They started in a way that was beautiful and filled with promise because he was making them, you know, so much hope and potential, but then it just fizzled out. The coward claimed he was a lion.
The coward claimed he was a lion.
Part of me wonders if this like kind of Wizard of Oz, the Cowardly Lion reference ties back into the rubies that I gave up, the ruby slippers, maroon. But I do think this kind of foreshadows later on where we hear about like him being ghosted as well. It's like, you ghosted. What a cowardly thing to do. You claimed to be a lion, you came in like you were gonna save my life, and then you ghosted? I thought you were brave. Where did that man go? Our field of dreams engulfed in fire.
Our field of dreams engulfed in fire.
Now, Taylor has so many movie references on this album. This is maybe my favorite, and it's probably just a play on words, not an actual reference to the hit baseball movie. But if you haven't seen it, there is this kind of famous quote that encapsulates the film.
If you build it, he will come.
Wait, it's about ghosts, and he ghosted her. Interesting. Yeah, the premise is basically a man builds a baseball diamond out in his field, and the ghosts of all of these old like baseball legends come and play there. Yet the famous quote, if you build it, they will come. I wonder if that's how she felt about their relationship. Like, if you build it, she made room in her life for him. Like, she got fresh out the slammer, you know, created that environment for them to flourish and thrive together, with the promise from him that they would finally give it a real go. But it was engulfed in fire. Like, he burned it up. Your arsons match your somber eyes. When I first heard this, actually no, probably like the first 2 months of hearing this, I thought it was your arson. Grammatically, it doesn't really make sense, but like, I thought it was saying it matches, like when something matches something else. But it's your arsons match, as in one of these, your somber eyes. Here it's playing on the dichotomy of that. It's saying like, you're the one that burnt us down. You are the arson that held the match. How dare you now act sad and cry about this when it was your fault? You are what ruined us. He burned them down. He doesn't get to be sad. You don't get to tell me about sad. I'm combing through the braids of lies, just being like, I'm looking through everything we had, everything you told me, trying to find what was true, because at this point now, I have no idea. I'll never leave. Never mind. He said to her, I'll never leave, but he did. So how can you trust that any of it was real? And we get to that on The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. And then of course we come to the plot twist that we all saw coming. You're the loss of my life.
Until I die, you're the loss of my life.
Now, I don't know if anyone else sees it this way, but I actually see this song ending in quite an optimistic way, because she never once throughout this song calls him the love of her life. She makes it very clear to us that he called her that she was the love of his life, but deliberately he is not that for Taylor. And to me, I don't know, I just think that's really hopeful. It's like, this loss is probably the most painful thing I will ever experience, but you are not the love of my life. I'm still gonna go on and find that. I could be way off reading that. That could be really naive of me, but that's just how I read it. Now, I would be remiss if not to mention the gradual shift of lost lyrics over our recent albums. We of course begin with Cornelia Street, I Hope I Never Lose You, to Stop, You're Losing Me, finally, You're the Loss of My Life. Now, do I think these songs are all about the same muse? But it is a very interesting and painful evolution. And I honestly don't think I can pick anything else for the thesis statement of this song other than You're the Loss of My Life. What a song. And true to form, like me calling this track 5 of the second half of this first part of the album, we then follow that, of course, with an upbeat bop of a song. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart.
I'm a real tough kid, I can handle my shit.
Here we have our resident glittery gel pen song, and thank God after what just happened, I really needed this to pick me up off the floor.
I'm so depressed I act like it's my birthday every day.
Now sonically, it sounds a lot like Mastermind and Bejeweled to me, which I do think is incredibly intentional. It paints the perfect picture of being on the Eras tour and like of Taylor herself being on the Eras tour. This is one of the most interesting songs to listen to sonically. Like, we have all of these kind of slower, quieter background noises that represent her being backstage or just in her own mind, feeling emotions, processing privately, and then with the countdown we know, okay, it's time to snap into action and perform. Now that countdown emulates the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the in-ear that an artist hears when it is time to like hit their cue.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bitch, dive. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You talking shit for the hell of it.
But also it tells Taylor and kind of us, the audience, the, you know, the listeners, it's time to be like upbeat and positive like this. She snaps into action and is ready to perform. When you compare and contrast the verse lyrics to the chorus with that countdown in between, it really shifts from being like aware of your surroundings, processing, taking in and feeling the emotion that you're going through, to then suddenly wipe that clear. I'm now a performer, I'm a character, I'm here to deliver a show for you, I'm here to entertain. You know, the alternate title to this song I think is The Show Must Go On. So on Genius we have credits for background vocals and also spoken word to Ollie Jacobs. So I'm assuming it's him doing the countdown, kind of mimicking what would be Taylor's tour manager. And I love that the transition from the verse into the chorus is, I can show you lies.
I can show you lies.
everything that we hear in the verses is like her own inner reality, and then the chorus then becomes the performance. I'm a real tough kid, I can handle my shit. Very you're on your own kid. This song isn't only Taylor telling us, but I think also trying to convince herself, or reminding herself even, that I can do this with a broken heart. You gotta fake it till you make it, and I did. Weirdly enough, this also calls back to Snow on the Beach.
Fake it till you make it till you do.
But in Snow on the Beach, it was more like an achievement. Here, she's masking grief. Now, this album obviously is filled with poetry, tortured poetry, but when it comes to thinking of like the Instagram caption worthy lyrics, I think
Lights, camera, bitch, smile, even when you wanna die.
Takes the cake. Or possibly I cry a lot, but I am so productive, it's an art. Now, the Eras Tour performance is something else entirely that we could dive into, but the way that Cam and Jan, I think that's how you say his name, like have to force Taylor in this, you know, in this performance here, they have to bring the life back into her because it has left. After The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, she is lifeless. She's been shot twice, she's dead. But you know, the show must go on. They must continue to profit from their performer. The way that she turns it on when she needs to, because the cameras are rolling or the audience is waiting. It's just so good, and like so much of this cuts back to Who's Afraid of Little Old Me with like the circus performing acts. And I mean, the fact that Travis got to be involved in this part of the show, if you missed it, Travis and Jason discussed on New Heights that initially he kind of joked about going on stage during 1989, which we know is like his favorite era.
I initially mentioned it to Tay. I was like, how funny would it be if I just like rolled out on one of the bikes during the 1989, like she started laughing. She was like, would you seriously be up for like doing something like that? And I was just like, are you what? I would love to do that. Are you kidding me? I've seen the show enough. Might as well put me to work here. She found the perfect part of the show for me to come in. Cam and Jan, a part of the Torture Poets era of the show, are trying to bring Tay back to life, right?
Bike riding on a stage would be hard for even the most trained, delicate dancers. The fact that Taylor came up with this instead, to be like, actually, when I'm at my lowest emotionally from being destroyed by heartbreak, what if you like held me and supported me and carried me? The symbolism of that, having your big, beefy, Super Bowl winning rock star football boyfriend perform with you on stage and carry you in front of a crowd of 90,000 people, including Paul McCartney, in the city where your two exes live. Just having him publicly celebrate her, which is something that she did not receive for so long, just really makes my heart happy. But during that performance, when they are kind of trying to force some life into Taylor, all of the exaggerated motions pretty much call back to silent film stars. Nice little nod to Clara Bow there. Now, this is not the first time we've heard Taylor sing about, you know, suffering and having to put on a brave face. My fellow debut stans will know Tied Together with a Smile. This was a song that Taylor wrote when she found out her friend had been struggling with an eating disorder. And this is actually a song I think new fans will really appreciate once we hear the re-recorded version. It's just such a relatable song, but also so beautiful. And to me, both of these songs serve as such important reminders that we just never know what someone else is going through, and like the importance of like why we should just always lead with empathy. I remember so clearly getting comments about this song, or even DMs, a lot from men, but some women too, being like, well, so what? Like, I have to get up and go to my 9 to 5. What makes her so special? And I just felt like, isn't that kind of the point? That like we all feel this, we can all relate to that experience and feeling. To me, I thought this is a song that everyone can probably connect to. Maybe not at the scale of, you know, the largest tour in the entire world, but all of us at some point have been choking back tears and like having to put on a brave face, go out and do our job and pretend everything is fine.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Just to get super vulnerable for a minute with you guys, there are videos on this channel where I was bawling my eyes out right beforehand and like had to redo my makeup, reset, get myself emotionally together because I have to like kind of put on a brave face for the camera. I know I can kind of be real with you all, but like, you know, there is a job to do. You do have to have some level of professionalism, and hopefully you can't tell which videos that is because I like to think I'm a professional and good at my job, but it's just a reminder that like all of us have to keep going and push on in the face of hardship when life just sucks. And I know this probably sounds so privileged, because it is, to anyone that hasn't ever done anything like performance-based before. I don't know, I think we don't show enough compassion for one another. To me, I know Taylor obviously is in a massive position of power and privilege, but also pressure. The more eyes on you, the harder it becomes. So yes, this may be a completely different level to how you and I would experience it, but to me, like, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart is the anthem for nurses and teachers and wait staff, like anyone that has ever worked in the service industry, you understand this feeling. Like, this reminds me of waiting in like the stockroom or the freezer, having a little cry, pulling yourself together, like wiping your tears and going out with a smile and pretending you love life because you're there to do a job. And one thing that I always wonder if TikTok could have a positive influence on for once could be kind of the way we get exposed to different people's lifestyles. You know, hopefully someone's algorithm is showing them all different walks of life. And my hope is that in seeing that, in seeing how hard someone's day was and knowing that they had to like keep going through that because they were working, that's the same hope that I have for this song, that it just reminds us all that everyone has, what's that quote? Like, everyone has an inner battle you know nothing about. Like, sorry, but it's true. Like, cliche, but it is true. And I remember seeing once someone said, like, if we all threw our problems into a pile, you'd probably like want yours back. I think we're all guilty of this, getting in our own head about how hard things are, but remembering truly everyone you know is fighting a battle. It's just true. So my point is, I hope TikTok can help the world be more compassionate to like your child's teacher or your dad's nurse or anyone that you think is not under pressure for some reason, like really is, you know, or be kinder to your wait staff. That'd be great. And I think I hope the same thing for this song. Like, I just hope this reminds you that no matter how much money someone has or how famous they are, you guys know my theory on that. I think fame is not good for us, but every human being deserves compassion to an extent. Anyway, I think this song is equally depressing as hell and also uplifting. She's not just saying, I have a broken heart. The other important part of this is I can do it. Not I have to do it with a broken heart, but I can do it. Like, I can keep going. I've got this. And a key part of that is if we take into account like the staging and the graphics on the main stage on the Eras tour, how much it resembles the Lucky One. So I think here we're really calling back to previous tours and even the Eras tour, which we've seen with the choreography in this song mimicking that. To me, this really exemplifies that not only can she do it right now or last year with a broken heart, but that she's been doing it her entire career. Think about the fact that it was little baby Speak Now Taylor on tour that wrote All Too Well. And she was out there giving one of the best concert tours of all time. She can do anything with a broken heart. She always has. I was going to say the thesis statement for this song is all the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more, but I fear that's quite depressing. I think it's got to be I cry a lot, but I'm so productive. It's an art. Nothing sums up Taylor Swift better than that. Also, shout out to everyone who can relate to I'm so depressed I act like it's my birthday every day, because for some reason I always cry on my birthday. I don't know if this is like an Aquarius thing or a girl thing, but I don't know. It's just a very emotional time. Maybe especially once you've lost a parent or like are going through something hard. Birthdays can just be a real challenge, you know? So thinking about birthdays is like the epitome of this song to me, because that is the time I have to put on a brave face and be like, everything's great. Okay, now we have made it to track 14, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived.
Were you sent by someone who wanted me dead?
Possibly the deepest diss track known to mankind. If it were like 2018, we would say, Maddie Healy, welcome to your tape. I thought debut Taylor was angry. For any new fans, this is kind of the scathing pen that's on fire kind of writing you can expect from Taylor Swift, Taylor's version when that comes out. Just prepare yourselves. I wonder if a song like this would hit harder or like there would be deeper cuts and references for 1975 fans. Sadly, I probably miss a lot of the references there. Like, my favorite 1975 song is Change Your Ticket by One Direction. But sonically, this song is what I like to refer to as a granger. You guys are probably familiar with this term by now. It is a gradual banger. It slowly builds until something unleashes. Not even unleashes, but like explodes. Opening up this song kind of where loml left off. Was any of it true?
Was any of it true?
Right off the bat, we are questioning, did I just imagine this relationship in my head? Because if you were in love as I was, I could never throw us away, especially not that easily. Gazing at me starry-eyed calls right back to thought I was better safe than starry-eyed.
Gazing at me starry-eyed, I thought I was better safe than starry-eyed. But your eyes are flying saucers from another planet. Starry-eyed sparking at my darkest night.
She thought she was better safe than starry-eyed, but took a chance on him anyway and still got burned. In Your Jehovah's Witness Suit is one of my favorite lyrics on this album, and there are so many layers to this.
In your Jehovah's Witness suit.
Firstly, there is the obvious. This is a man who wears these kind of like oversized Jehovah's Witness suits. But now I learned from a comment on my reaction video that Jehovah's Witnesses published a book called The Greatest Man Who Ever Lived, and they announced that modern society would end in 1975. Again, I don't really think this is intentional. This is just once again a sign of how the universe rearranges itself to align for Taylor Swift. So to me, the best part of this lyric is that like Jehovah's Witness suit is not just about the way he dresses, because you could just say any kind of suit. A Jehovah's Witness is someone that like comes into your life and tries to, no offense, sell you a story, sell you a lie, depending on how you look at, you know, religion. They are there to push their own morals onto you and make a promise to you. So this again is why she's asking, was any of this true? Or were you just trying to sell me an idea? Jehovah's Witnesses are like forbidden to lie. So when they're telling you this story and promising you this different life, I think they have to be very careful with their wording. But I guess if you believe it in that moment, there's no reason to lie. It's just that he promised her something and then took it away. You tried to buy some pills from a friend of friends of mine is really interesting because it's not that you did buy pills, it's that you tried to. And I think this gives me the impression that her friends like turned him away. I mean, we know that. They just ghosted you. Now you know what that feels like. I think given her upbringing and like just all that we kind of know of Taylor, this is people that sell pills wouldn't be the kind of company she would keep. So I think she's like, you tried to buy pills from my friends. That made me feel so embarrassed. I mean, again, later we see kind of references to this on Chloe et al. You know, you needed me, but you needed drugs more, where essentially he chose drugs over her. Now, I love, I don't even want you back, but could someone give a message to the smallest man who ever lived? Because she's like, I don't even care enough about this person to say this to them. Can someone just pass this song along? Like, please make sure he hears this, because this is how I feel. And I think I said in my reaction that he essentially like ruined her hot girl summer because she was fresh out the slammer, just broke free from her like long-term relationship where she felt like she'd been caged and jailed. She's on the biggest tour of all time. It was Barbie summer, guys. Like, it was Barbie era's tour summer. And yet suddenly she's devastated all over again. Was rusting my sparkling summer the goal? Like, is that, were you trying to ruin me? Because you did. Verse 2, there are so many like double meanings here. You hung me on your wall, stabbed me with your push pins.
Hung me on your wall, stabbed me with your push pin.
First listen, I picked up on like the surface level meanings of this. Like, he was idolizing her, he looked up to her. Maddie always spoke very highly of Taylor, both back in 2014 and also like in more recent years. So like, to hang someone on your wall, if you grew up around the same time I did, obviously we grew up putting celebrities on our wall. For me, it was Zac Efron and Jesse McCartney. I had a life-size poster with them on either side that had to be alternated because I felt bad. Here Taylor's saying like, you really loved me and you supported me, and like, she's like, you kind of idolized me, you put me on this pedestal even. But he also hung her, aka killed her, hung her on her wall, and stabbed me with your push pins. Like, we're seeing this dichotomy here of the love and also the pain, and like, it just foreshadows what was to come. Then this continues into in public showed me off and sank into stoned oblivion.
Public showed me off, then sank in stoned oblivion.
We'll all remember that he did show up in public, you know, and celebrated her in front of other people in a way that, I'm sorry to bring it up, but her previous relationship lacked that. But then behind the scenes, it didn't match that. It wasn't right. And then sank in stoned oblivion, I think, again, has two meanings. Obviously here there is another drug reference, but also another form of being killed, stoned to death. Now here Taylor taught me a word I did not know before. Once your queen had come, you treat her like an also-ran.
You treat her like an also-ran.
So an also-ran is essentially someone who competes but does not place. Like, you didn't come first, you didn't come second or third, you're just an also-ran. All these years he kind of idolized and cherished her, had her on his walls. Once he finally got her, she wasn't that special. One of the best lyrics on this album, you didn't measure up in any measure of a man. He deserved that one.
In any measure of a man.
I feel like that is every man's biggest fear, being told that, having the world told publicly that like the manhood wasn't quite there. So this song has been bubbling up and building with quiet resentment, you could say, until finally the emotion becomes too much and it all culminates into this.
Were you sent by someone who wanted me dead?
Step aside Brooklyn and Golden Gate, because this is the best bridge in the world. While we're here, shout out to anyone in the car right now, because I have only recently learned that a lot of you guys listen to me like a podcast on your long drives. I'm sending a special shout out, kind of like a radio, to any of you on a long drive right now. I love you, get home safe. Okay, this bridge, oh my goodness. All of Taylor's disbelief about this relationship and how he hurt her explodes here in this bridge. She still just cannot believe that someone could treat her like this. This bridge is her essentially trying to find excuses excuses or reasons behind what happened because it just doesn't add up. Were you sent by someone who wanted me dead?
Were you sent by someone who wanted me dead?
I mean, firstly, can we talk about the emotion in her voice here? But she's saying like, was this whole thing a setup by someone from my life that hates me? Did they send you in just to ruin me and like make me feel awful? Because it worked. Was this an attempt at revenge from a hitman, essentially? Imagine feeling so much pain that you're like, the universe would not do this to me. You wouldn't do this to me if you loved me like I thought you did. So this whole thing must have been fake from my arch nemesis. This must have all been planned because I could never do that to someone. She's calling him a hitman, essentially saying, the way you killed me was like it was your job. Like it was emotionless. Did you sleep with a gun underneath our bed?
Did you sleep with a gun underneath our bed?
Your bed is where you're supposed to feel the most safe, right? It is a place of truth and trust and intimacy. And she's like, was I actually in danger that entire time? When I was sleeping soundly next to you, feeling safe, you already had your weapon ready to go to use against me. She's questioning if she was just actually being violated their entire relationship. Oh, and then, were you writing a book?
Were you writing a book?
I cannot hear this line and not think of my girl, Aria Montgomery.
I was writing a book about her. A true crime book.
A book? That's what I was to you. I was research.
Her finding out that Ezra not only knew her age the entire time, but also intentionally sought her out because he had dated her even younger friend who was presumed dead and was writing a book about all of them. Like, Marlene King dug herself such a hole with that storyline to be like, yeah, he did that, but they still got married. If you haven't seen my video ranking every single Pretty Little Liars character, I will link that down below. I feel like it is a cornerstone of understanding me as a person, so check it out if you'd like to. But like for Taylor, I can't even imagine how much more this would hurt to be like, as someone that is a public figure, to then be like, were you just collecting dirt on me to release into the world? Was all of this just to sell and profit from? Were you a sleeper cell spy?
Were you a sleeper cell spy?
Shout out to my man Bucky Barnes. Like everything felt fine in the relationship until one day it just wasn't. Was there a command or an event that like triggered you and set you off? Saying that he was a double agent that wove his way into her life only to betray her. I don't know if I'll ever be over this bridge. In 50 years, will all this be declassified and you'll confess why you did it and I'll say good riddance? I find that really interesting because she feels like even 50 years from now, I still won't understand why you did what you did until you come out with a story and like explain it all. And even if you did, I'll say fuck off. Because it wasn't sexy once it wasn't forbidden.
Because it wasn't sexy once it wasn't forbidden.
Again, this calls right back to something we said earlier. Once he finally had her where he wanted her, she'd left the jail. She kind of tore up her whole life for him. She was ready to commit and he was like, I actually don't know anymore. It was more enticing to him when they were just still a fantasy, a what if, when it was guilty as sin. I would have died for your sins. Instead, I just died inside.
I would have died for your sins. Instead, I just died inside.
Again, here we have Taylor kind of comparing herself to Jesus, being like, I would have sacrificed everything for you. In fact, she did. And to me, this line parallels not only would have, could have, should have, but all too well with, you kept me like a secret, but I kept you like an oath. My commitment was lifelong, down to my core. I choose you and me religiously, and you just tossed us aside. You deserve prison, but you won't get time. Such a great play on words. Like, you won't get sent away, but also you wouldn't even find the time to repent for your sins or like think about how you made me feel. You won't even make the time for that. You'll slide into inboxes and slip through the bars. Again, a great little play on words. Slip through the bars being like you'll sneak out of jail, but also the bars being like you'll go out and find other women. And you will do this again and again to someone else. But also a third meaning, bars like the bars of a song. You will do this over and over again and you will write about new girls and new victims. You crashed my party and your rental car. Kind of makes me think about the teenage love triangle from Folklore. So I showed up at your party and then you said normal girls were boring, but you were gone by the morning. It's like he reassured her. Obviously Taylor Swift is not normal in any regard. She is like the most talented, hardworking person alive. Also kind of, I don't know what you call it, like a dinosaur or a unicorn in terms of fame and like what she means to the world. She cannot be a normal girl no matter how much she might want to be at times. And he's like, don't worry babe, normal girls are boring. Like I love you and I want to be with you. When shit hit the fan last year and things got really, really hard, he left. He said he didn't want a normal girl, but in fact maybe that's all he could handle. Kicked out the stage lights, but you're still performing. You know, you put an end to us, but you've continued on just fine. And in plain sight you hid, but you are what you did. That Years after Who You Are Is Not What You Did. The growth. I'm so proud of you, Taylor. Call these shitty men out, because I think about the song Innocent all the time and how like it was just so not warranted, especially given everything that Kanye has done since then. I feel like she's almost reclaiming that power and being like, no, actually, when people show you who they are, believe them. And we end with, I'll forget you, but I'll never forgive the smallest man who ever lived. To me, this is the ultimate way to end a song. I mean, we know Taylor's position on forgiving and forgetting, but I think it's just great to say like, I will get over this, but I will never forgive you. Like, you should never feel good about what you did to me. I'm gonna move on with my life, but you will always be the smallest man who ever lived. Taylor went from you forgive, you forget, but you never let it go, to this new version where she's like, actually, I don't need to forgive. I'm gonna forget because I'm gonna move on with my life and be happy, but you don't deserve my forgiveness. Oh, what a song. God, what is the thesis statement for this song? I really think it's I would have died for your sins. Instead, I just died inside, because she did. Like, she laid herself down, put herself on that cross to be crucified for his actions, and paid the price anyway. I know no part of me can do that song justice, but oh my God. I think that song is truly Female Rage, the musical, especially when we look at the Eras Tour performances. The fact that she gets shot twice. Upon first watch, I thought that represented the two heartbreaks that she experienced quite close together, but I suppose it could also represent the fact that these two kind of had two shots at it, and by the end, it killed her. This is why it's so fun standing a former, you know, theater nerd. The theatrics just always hit. Okay, we have reached track 15, The Alchemy. This song is essentially So Happy That My Travie Made It to the Big Game, a song about how we cannot stop whatever the universe seems to have in store. This happens once every few lifetimes.
This happens once every few lifetimes.
Already parallels the other kind of Travis song we have on the anthology, No One's Ever Had Me Not Like You. Do you know how rare this is to find something that feels like this? One of my favorite things about Taylor Swift is she is truly an eternal optimist. I know the entire world likes to, you know, view her as like a woman that only writes about love and, you know, partners, as if that isn't what literally every singer-songwriter does. She's the embodiment of fall down 8 times, get up 9. Like, truly, it is inspiring to see the heartbreak she went through last year to how happy she is now. Deserved. And I hope that gives anyone who needs it hope. You could be crying backstage at the Eras Tour, crying on stage at the Eras Tour, posting Happy Independence Day from your Independence girlies, and that night your future boyfriend is in the audience. Sometimes fairy tales do come true. What if I told you I'm back, the hospital was a drag?
What if I told you I'm back, the hospital was a drag?
So the hospital, as we know from previous songs on this album, represents Florida, the miracle move on drug, the rebound. Like, the metaphorical asylum that she just got out of. She was like, worst sleep that I ever had. It was an unfortunate time, and more than anything, that was like a period of psychosis. I was out of my mind. It was self-harm. She's letting us know that she's no longer in that manic phase, you know, she's better now. As we know, this whole album was kind of her confessing that period of brief insanity, but also that she's over it now. Quite literally, she's back on US soil and coming back to herself. I circled you on a map. I just love when Taylor Swift is funny, which is most of the time, really. Like, I do feel bad for fans that don't understand the humor of this album, because so much of this album is hilarious.
I circled you on a map.
I circled you on a map is making fun of the jokes around like Taylor Swift put Travis Kelce on the map. She's like, well, you already existed, sure, but like I circled you. I put my sights on you and I said, you're coming home with me. And then I haven't come around in so long, but I'm coming back so strong.
I haven't come around in so long, but I'm coming back so strong.
It's a play on comeback. It's a sports reference. We're gonna have many in this song. I personally think I enjoy this song more than most people that I've seen online. I think the sports metaphors are very fun and playful and funny, but I also just love the sound. And the reference to a comeback is something we've seen many times throughout Taylor's career.
I come back stronger than a 90s trend.
And I can't help but read this any way other than I was with emotional, serious British men for a decade, but I'm back, baby. To me, this chorus joins the ranks of songs like Dear John and Style, with just being so blatantly obvious about who it is about, who we are referencing, and I love that.
Touchdown, call the amateurs and cut them from the team.
Touchdown, referring to American football, call the amateurs and cut them from the team. She's like, release your bench, clear your roster of like other girls you had waiting in the wings. It's just you and me now. You don't need anyone else because I'm the best.
Get the crown, baby, I'm the one to be.
like, baby, I'm the one to beat, another sports reference, but also saying like, it's us. Because the sign on your heart says it's still reserved for me. I always thought that was so poetic, but it took me a few more listens to understand like the literal math of that. The sign on your heart, aka your jersey number, which is 87, says it's still reserved for me because there is still 13 left. 87 plus 13 equals 100. And like, you know, obviously if we needed any further proof of like this song, Taylor performed this as the surprise song for the 87th Eras Tour show.
Can you believe this is our 87th show?
So when I touch down, call the amateurs and cut it from the sea. Just the clouds get the crown, and baby, I'm the one to be. Cause the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. Honestly, whoa, it's like the alchemy.
I just love when she is cute for her love. And I love that these are two of the probably most busy people in the world, but still find time to support one another. I know there is a big part of the world and the internet that like hates when artists are happy, when Taylor Swift is happy. Personally, I'm very happy seeing her being happy and being publicly celebrated. She deserves that. I remember someone saying once like, it feels like Travis is the first partner to understand that he is dating Taylor Swift. And we'll get to that on So High School, but I think it's a very astute observation. Obviously, I should also mention that this is track 15 because 8 plus 7 equals 15. This album, The Tortured Poets Department, is such a return to like early album Taylors, and I hope you know what I mean by that. Like that's truly the equivalent of Taylor writing Sam, 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 Sam in the lyric booklet to tell us who a song was about. I haven't come around in so long, but I'm making a comeback to where I belong.
Haven't come around in so long, but I'm making a comeback to where I belong.
I cannot read this any other way than like she has returned to her rightful place of like Queen of America. You know, she's come back from all of her London boys. Miss Americana is here once again. She spent the past 10 years with kind of like serious indie British boys, British men, give or take Harry and Tom. And like this continues into the extended chorus. These blokes warm the benches.
These blokes warm the benches, we've been on a winning streak.
Blokes being a very operative word here, a British term for men. She's just so funny. She's like, oh, all those kind of stiff indie British men I've been with the past 10 years, they were just placeholders. It's you and me now. Also, we've been on a winning streak. They were such great good luck charms for one another. I was gonna say good luck Charlie. She was such a good luck charm for him, and I think that bleeds into the next line. He jokes that it's heroin, but this time with an E. Everyone was commenting on how well Travis was playing when Taylor was attending the games. It was like he was showing off for her. He just needed his heroin, his good luck charm. And then this bridge is so fun because it paints such a vivid picture. Shirts off and your friends lift you up over their heads.
Shirts off and your friends lift you up over their heads.
Anyone that's won a sports match or game knows this feeling, but also shirts off just made me think of Jason in Buffalo. Beer sticking to the floor, again, you know the feeling, like any stadium after a game, just sticky beer floor. No chance trying to be the greatest in the league. Sports media for pretty much the whole season said that about the Chiefs. Proved him wrong, baby. Where's the trophy? He just comes running over to me.
Where's the trophy? He just comes running over to me.
I think this lyric might have been written about the, I don't know what it's called, but the game that qualifies you for the Super Bowl. That game the Chiefs won that secured their spot in the Super Bowl. How on top of the world they both felt, getting to experience this insane high together, both at the top of your field. Just amazing. And what a contrast that is. Like, who cares about a trophy? Like, he's just running to me compared to walking with his head down. I'm just really happy to see her like publicly celebrated. My thesis statement for this song is these blokes warm the benches, we've been on a winning streak, because it encompasses so much. I'm ready to be the Queen of America all over again. I just love when women embrace their power. Okay, and last but definitely not least, we have Miss Clara Bow. I really love how Americans say Clara, like Clara Bow. Sounds so much prettier than how we say it. This song I'm actually really intrigued to go back and listen to my predictions about and see if any of it was at all close, because I did such a deep dive into Clara Bow and like her life and how I thought this could be a song reflecting on Taylor's relationship with fame, which it definitely is. That was pretty spot on, but I think this is more of a commentary on fame itself rather than her relationship with it. Like, I often see people say this is, you know, kind of like Nothing New's Big Sister, but you know, we've had songs like like Mean, The Lucky One, Blank Space, Nothing New, Mirror Ball, Anti-Hero. All of these songs reflect on Taylor's relationship with fame, but I think Clara Bow pulls the rug out or lifts the curtain a little bit more about what the industry itself is like. And because of that, I don't think this song is as much related to like Nothing New as I've seen other people saying. To me, this is simply The Lucky One's older sister. This song doesn't have the insecurities around being replaced by younger artists that Nothing New has. It's more a commentary on like the never-ending cycle of this industry comparing women and pitting them against one another. Taylor is not saying that Stevie Nicks replaced Clara Bow. It's just more reflecting on how there will always be someone new for the industry to like sink their teeth into. One thing I love is that Taylor really recognizes herself as a legend in this song. Like, she is saying Clara Bow, the first ever it girl, who, like, if you want to know the whole story, check out my previous videos on this album, but like, there is Clara Bow, who was the first ever it girl, like the silent film era. There is Stevie Nicks, who, I mean, again, another icon, one of the most famous, revered singer-songwriters of all time. To then name herself as the modern equivalent, I think is so powerful, because it is simply true. How many times have we seen articles and news headlines saying, is X the new Taylor Swift? So here, I think she's being aware that it is temporary and circumstantial. Someone else will come down the stairs just like all those that came before her. But she is just one in a long line of successful women that the world will embrace for a short period of time before moving on to someone else. But it's not really about the anxiety of being replaced in like Nothing New, but rather the expose of the industry like we see in The Lucky One. So I've seen some different interpretations of this kind of storytelling online. My personal take is Taylor is not being told that she looks like Clara Bow, Stevie is. Hypothetically, in this situation, the first verse, you look like Clara Bow, that's being said to Stevie. Second verse, you look like Stevie Nicks, that's being said to Taylor. Third verse, you look like Taylor Swift, is being told to every new up and coming singer-songwriter that comes through the industry these days. That part is dedicated to the next generation. And it's not even so much a physical resemblance, although like there is some of that too, and Taylor referenced Clara in the Fortnite music video, but it's more about what they represent.
There's something about Taylor that she would have been a star in any decade. And her voice is, I just thought, you know, in my little fantasy world, if I was Tom Petty, who would be Stevie Nicks? And it's like, Taylor's like this fresh voice.
It's like what they see in her as like a capacity to make them money. And Taylor actually gave us a pretty incredible Easter egg for this. So in my tracklist breakdown video, I talked all about Clara Bow's life and how she was the first ever it girl because she starred in a film called It. Hence, she was the it girl. So the film that gave her that title was based on a book by Eleanor Glynn. This is a picture of Eleanor Glynn. This is a picture of Taylor Swift. I don't know how she comes up with this shit half the time, but I love it. I just love any time Taylor reflects on fame. I know I talk about this a lot. It's just such a fascinating concept to me. The relationship with oneself being known by more people than you know. And this is like the grandest scale that currently exists. I love in the first verse, all your life did you know you'd be picked like a rose, because it's both a compliment and a disservice, because it's saying like you're the chosen one. You are so beautiful and special and rare. And like we want to take you and admire you. But if you pick a rose, it dies. I think the pre-choruses of like, I'm not trying to exaggerate, but I think I might die if I made it. No one in this small town thought I'd see these suits in LA. Like, this shows the ambition that Taylor has and that likely that Clara and Stevie had. Clara's life was actually one of the saddest stories I've ever heard, and she actually left the industry at I think like age 26, which again kind of parallels the Lucky One. No one in my small town thought I'd see the lights of Manhattan. Think back to the Speak Now era when she's like, someday I'll be living in a big old city, and behind her we have like Nashville, New York. And all you're ever gonna be is me. These were the dreams of that young small town girl, and she made it. But at what cost? This town is fake, but you're the real thing. Breath of fresh air through smoke rings. This town is fake, but you're the real thing. I mean, Hollywood, the industry, Music Row, everything is fake. This is not a new revelation, but the way that they're lifting her up above this whilst putting other girls down. This town is fake, but you're the real thing. Selling her this empty promise of like, no one else here has what you have. You've got that it factor, you're the real deal. If you've ever been in the dance world, acting, modeling, music, like especially as a woman, not only do you feel competitive within yourself, but the way that these industries force you to compete against one another and only uplift you by putting others down. I mean, we'll get to that with the end sort of lyrics. And like the smoke rings, I just picture like a casting table full of agents and producers back in those old Hollywood days when everyone just smoked inside. But also the metaphor of like blowing smoke, which is basically to lie, to sell someone lies, like exaggerating about their potential to get her to sign with them, or even that everyone else is lying about their potential but she really has it, which is kind of funny if you know the old Taylor Swift song Who I've Always Been, because that's kind of how she felt. Take the glory, give everything.
Take the glory, give everything.
The price you pay for fame and success, not even success, mostly just fame, is essentially the rest of your life. Like think about the privacy loss, the normalcy. Again, this calls back to the lucky one. You took the money and the dignity and you got the hell out. Like good for you for taking what you were able to, but maintaining yourself and leaving this industry far behind, because once again, we know how destructive and like deadly fame can be. So I think anyone that can reach a level of success they feel comfortable with, or achieve their goals, achieve their dreams, but ultimately remember who they are at their core, and even if they want to step away from that, like think about Zayn from One Direction, how hated he was for leaving the band, to step back for his own mental health. I truly applaud him, because as much as One Direction is like one of my favorite bands of all time, and would I have loved 5 more albums from them? Of course. He made such a difficult decision to like take care of his mental health, and like I don't know, it's just so sad to think about how he was vilified for that rather than applauded. So then we evolve in this next chorus to the crown is stained but you're the real queen.
Crown is stained, but you're the real queen.
It's like this crown has been passed down through generations of different it girls. It's used, it's second or third or 10th hand, taken from the girls who have like expired by the industry standard. Their time in the spotlight is over and it's now whisked onto Taylor. Once again, using like the failure of other women to lift her up. Like, oh, they tried, but like you're the real queen. And the crown is of course stained because it likely contains the blood, sweat and tears of all of these women who came before and were just as hardworking and talented as Taylor. It's just that their time has passed. Flesh and blood amongst war machines.
Flesh and blood amongst war machines.
This industry is soulless, a killing machine, you might say. We know it cares more about numbers and charts more than like actual people. This just reminded me of one of my other favorite Taylor lyrics of all time. All we are is skin and bone, trained to get along. What an incredible way to like sum up the human experience. We're skin and bone, trained to get along. Oh, it's like revealing our humanity, but also that we're all kind of the same. Anyway, you're the new god we're worshipping, promise to be dazzling. Just imagine like the way that someone taking a chance on you feels like you owe them your entire life. They're like, we're betting on you, kid. You better not fail us now. Like we've invested money into you, time. If you fuck this up, we all pay the price. So don't. You have no choice but to succeed now. And I love that Taylor mentions God again here, because we've seen all the references to herself being in like God or Jesus's position in this album. And she's like, you made me that way. You told me I had to be this new figurehead, but the industry made her that way. You know, they're like, it's your time in the spotlight now. You are the one that all of your fans and young girls are gonna worship, so be worth it. I'm very intrigued to hear from the perspective of all of the like Christian faith people that really didn't like this album because of the God references. Like to hear the lyric, you're the new God we're worshipping. Just very interesting. Again, I think my take on this bridge is a little bit different to how I've seen others interpret it. Beauty is the beast that roars, down on all fours, demanding more. I kind of took that as nothing is ever going to be good enough. You can be the most beautiful you've ever been, and there will always be someone more beautiful than you. Skinnier, prettier, richer, all of these things that the industry values, it will never be enough.
There's always some standard of beauty that you're not meeting. Because if you're thin enough, then you don't have that ass that everybody wants. But if you have enough weight on you to have an ass, then your stomach isn't flat enough. It's all just fucking impossible.
It will always demand more, and even if you find it, then you have to chase it to keep it up. And then only once your girlish glow flickers just so will they let you know.
Only when your girlish glow flickers just so do they let you know.
I've seen most people say that this is like, I don't know, appreciating you for that, but I saw it as when your girlish glow flickers, as in like it's fading for a second, that's when they're like, hold on, what was that? Like, we don't want that, we can't have that. Don't you dare age on us. The most valuable thing you can be as a woman is young. And that is what I think the industry has emphasized here. If your girlish glow is flickering, like it's fading even just for a second, you cannot let anyone see that. And if it does, they will let you know. It's hell on earth to be heavenly, because as we know, people throw rocks at things that shine. This final verse, hearing Taylor Swift say her own name in a song, nothing could have prepared me.
You look like
here, finally now, the industry is talking to future generations. You look like Taylor Swift is probably the highest compliment they could pay someone in their eyes, and also in this new up-and-coming girl's eyes, because she is everything. She is our generation's it girl. But also the use of "in this light" is very interesting.
In this light, we're loving it.
With the right circumstances, you could be Taylor Swift, but you need us to guide you to get you there. We can make you the next Taylor Swift. And then it also kind of serves as a warning. Like, Taylor is imparting some advice to this next generation, being like, be careful. One of my favorite lines in this song is, "You've got edge, she never did."
You've got edge, she never did.
If you've been a fan of Taylor's since like early on in her career, you know that something that she was known for was kind of being a lot more wholesome than a lot of other pop girls, especially when we compare to like the more sexy vibes from pop stars that were almost expected of the 90s and early 2000s. That wasn't Taylor's vibe at all, and kind of still really isn't. Like, obviously on the Eras tour, she's shaking ass, having fun as she should, but her brand has never really been sexy pop star. Like, she's more singer-songwriter. She comes from the background of Christian upbringing, country singer, you know, grandma dresses at sometimes. So this is the way to put her down and uplift the next generation. Be like, you're the next Taylor Swift, but even better, because she never had edge about her. She never had that like Avril Lavigne, Olivia Rodrigo, even the sexiness of Sabrina Carpenter, or even like the provocativeness of a Lady Gaga, Chappell Roan. This is the way they can put her down to uplift others. She's being self-deprecating here and saying that someone else is gonna come along eventually and take her spot, and likely the way that they would be praised is that Taylor was a lot more wholesome, I'm gonna say, whereas like sex sells in the industry, in most industries. So for someone who's willing to write edgier lyrics or show more skin on their album covers, I would say besides like Sparks Fly,
You touch me once, if I'm even better than you imagined I would be.
there was a lack of overt sexual references from Taylor's almost like first 5 albums, whereas other artists today feel comfortable singing about that, which is obviously valid, and I think that could be a selling point that the industry really likes for them, which is interesting when you think about how also like Disney wants girls to not do that, but there's always a lane for either. It's interesting to think about the transition that both Olivia and Sabrina have had. They both got their start on Disney Channel, and Sabrina's first like 5 albums were through Disney's label and therefore weren't really as sexual as the music she's putting out now. I think Olivia must have signed with a different label from the beginning because she's been able to write kind of like edgier songs her whole career. Whereas when you compare that to Taylor's generation, like the Selenas, the Mileys, they had a much harder time transitioning from Disney kid to like actual adult who maybe has sex and wants to sing about it, which I don't know if is like a generational change, but it's very interesting. Taylor's talked about this, but like her ability to stay relevant through the 2000s, the 2010s, and now the 2020s is kind of almost unparalleled, at least in this generation. I think we've seen like the Beatles and Madonna and other artists have that same long spanning career, but for Taylor it's really come down to reinvention, which is something I don't think a lot of male artists have had to do. Like, look at Sabrina, how much success she has found by kind of rebranding herself. For a lot of women, this is almost part of the essential recipe of staying relevant. For Taylor, it wasn't even so much about looks but sound. Like, she conquered country, then pop, then folk, then whatever the fuck Tortured Poets is. Like, it's just an incredible talent, but it's something that we don't really see male artists have to do. Now, our final line, "The future's bright, dazzling."
The future's bright, dazzling.
Do we think this is an Easter egg? Obviously, there's been hints and clues about Taylor's involvement in Deadpool versus Wolverine or whatever it's called. There has been a lot of Easter egging on their behalf. So either they're incredibly smart and using her because Swifties will go and buy a ticket to this movie, or she's putting in a little Easter egg for a character that she's about to play. I guess we'll see. Well guys, that is the first side, the white part of this album. I'm so glad that we could take the time to sit down and talk about this. My butt hurts for sitting down for so long. And I'm sorry I had to split this. Like this and part 1 have been filmed over like 5 different days now because I just had how many pages of notes? 39. It's like I love this album or something. But ultimately, I really just hope I was able to impart some wisdom. I hope you were able to learn something new, even if it was just one thing. I will have achieved my goal here today. If I missed anything, any really key points that you like loved from these songs, please comment them below. Nothing would make me happier than to learn something new here today. Thank you for sitting through such a long video with me. I truly appreciate it. Again, feel free to enter the giveaway if you haven't. Thank you all so much for being here. I love you and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Is this what it feels like to grow up?